My parents funded my brother's failed business while leaving me buried in debt, and now they want to meet my daughter. But I dropped a truth bomb that exposed years of favoritism, neglect, and betrayal, and changed everything between us. My parents funded my brother's failed business but left me in debt. Now they want to meet my daughter, but I drop a truth bomb that changes everything. I never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am seeking advice from strangers on the internet about my family situation. My name is Johnny, and I'm 32 years old. I've been estranged from my parents for almost 8 years now, and suddenly they're trying to be a part of my life again. I'm not sure how to handle this, and I could really use some outside perspective to understand my situation. You need to know about my childhood. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the older of two boys. My younger brother, Bobby, 30, and was born when I was just 2 years old. From the beginning, it was clear that Bobby was the golden child. He was outgoing, athletic, and charming. Everything I wasn't. I was more introverted and focused on academics. Our parents, especially our dad, always seemed more interested in Bobby's activities than in mine. Dad was a former high school football star who never quite got over his glory days. When Bobby showed an interest in sports, Dad was over the moon. He'd spend hours in the backyard teaching Bobby how to throw a perfect spiral while I sat on the porch with my books. Mom wasn't as blatant about her favoritism, but it was still there. She'd gush over Bobby's finger paintings and put them on the fridge while my report cards with straight A's were met with a simple "good job, Johnny." I remember one particularly painful incident. When I was 10, I had won the school science fair with a project on renewable energy. I was so excited to show my parents, but when I got home, they were too busy celebrating Bobby making the junior football team to even look at my blue ribbon. As we got older, the favoritism became even more apparent. In high school, I threw myself into my studies, joining the debate team and the math club. I was determined to get into a good college and become a doctor. Bobby, on the other hand, coasted by on his charm and athletic ability. He was the star quarterback, dating cheerleaders and going to parties every weekend. I still remember the night of my high school graduation. I was valedictorian, and I had worked for weeks on my speech. As I stood at the podium, I scanned the audience for my family. Dad was there, but he was busy filming Bobby, who was goofing off with his friends in the back row. Mom at least seemed to be paying attention, but I could see her constantly glancing over at Bobby. It felt like, even in my moment of triumph, I was still in my brother's shadow. When it came time for college, I got accepted into a prestigious university with a partial scholarship. I was thrilled, but my excitement was short-lived. My parents sat me down and told me they couldn't afford to help me with tuition. They said they had been saving for years, but unexpected expenses had come up, and they just didn't have the money. I was devastated, but determined. I took out student loans, worked part-time jobs, and managed to make it through undergrad. It was tough, but I was proud of myself for doing it on my own. I worked as a tutor, a library assistant, and even spent a summer doing night shifts at a 24-hour diner. There were times when I was so exhausted I could barely keep my eyes open during lectures, but I pushed through. Meanwhile, Bobby had decided college wasn't for him. He worked at a local garage, spending his evenings at bars and parties. Our parents never seemed concerned about his lack of direction. They'd just chuckle and say, "That's our Bobby, always living the moment." Then during my senior year, I found out the truth. Bobby, who had been working at the garage for a couple of years, suddenly announced he was opening his own auto repair shop. To my shock, our parents had given him their entire savings, the money they had told me didn't exist, to start his business. I couldn't believe it. All those nights I had spent worrying about my mounting student debt, all the times I had to choose between buying textbooks or eating proper meals, and they had money all along. They just chose to give it to Bobby instead. When I confronted them about it, they tried to justify their decision. They said Bobby needed the money more because he didn't have a college degree, and that I would be fine because I was smart and would make good money as a doctor someday. They didn't seem to understand or care about the massive debt I had taken on or the stress I had been under. That was the last straw for me. I finished my degree and got into medical school, but I cut off almost all contact with my family. I only spoke to them on major holidays, and even then it was brief and superficial. I threw myself into my studies, determined to succeed despite their lack of support. During my second year of medical school, I met Donna. She was a law student, brilliant and compassionate. For the first time, I felt truly seen and appreciated for who I was. We started dating, and she became my rock. She listened to me when I talked about my family issues and never judged me for my decision to distance myself from them after graduation. Donna and I got married and moved to Seattle for our respective residencies. We built a life together far from my family and the pain of my past. 2 years ago, we welcomed our daughter Lily into the world. Becoming a father made me reflect on my own childhood, and I promised myself that Lily would always feel loved and supported no matter what path she chose. In life, fast forward to now, I'm a successful pediatrician. Donna is making waves at a prominent law firm, and Lily is a precocious 2-year-old who keeps us on our toes. Life is good, but I still carry the hurt from my family's betrayal. A few weeks ago, I got a call from my mom. It was the first time we had spoken in months, and I could tell something was wrong. She was crying, saying that Bobby's business had failed, and he had moved back in with them. Apparently, he had made some bad decisions, gotten into debt, and was now unemployed. My parents had to remortgage their house to help them out. Now suddenly they want to reconnect with me. They've been calling and texting, asking to visit and meet their granddaughter. My dad even sent me an email talking about how proud he is of my success and how he wants to make amends. Part of me wants to give them a chance. After all, they're my parents, and I do miss having a family. I think about Lily and wonder if I'm depriving her of grandparents, but another part of me is angry and hurt. It feels like they only want me in their lives now because Bobby has disappointed them and they need someone to be proud of. I don't know what to do. Should I give them another chance? Should I keep them at arm's length? Or should I just maintain the distance I've established over the years? Donna thinks I should at least hear them out, but she's also protective of me and doesn't want to see me hurt again. She's offered to be there when I talk to them as a buffer and support system. I'm torn between the desire for family and the need to protect myself from further pain. The thought of letting them back into my life terrifies me. What if they hurt me again? What if they try to use me as a financial safety net now that Bobby has fallen from grace? But then I look at Lily and wonder if I'm letting my past affect her future. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. How do I navigate this situation without becoming a doormat or letting my anger control me? How do I protect my own family while potentially rebuilding relationships with my parents? I feel like I'm standing at a crossroads, and I'm not sure which path to take. Update 1. Thank you all for your responses. I've read through every comment, and I appreciate the different perspectives you've shared. I wanted to give you an update on what's happened since my original post. After much consideration and many long talks with Donna, I decided to meet with my parents, but on my terms. I suggested we meet at a neutral location, a quiet cafe near my workplace. Without my wife or daughter present, I wanted to hear them out without immediately involving my new family. The days leading up to the meeting were filled with anxiety. I found myself snapping at Donna over little things and having trouble sleeping the night before. I sat in Lily's room long after she had fallen asleep, watching her peaceful face and wondering if I was making the right decision. The morning of the meeting, I arrived at the cafe early. I chose a table in the corner where we could have some privacy. As I waited, I couldn't help but remember all the times I had sat waiting for my parents to show up to my events, debate competitions, science fairs, even my high school graduation party. They had always been late, usually because of something involving Bobby, but this time they were early. I saw them through the window walking the cafe. They looked older than I remembered, more worn down. My mom's hair was fully gray now, and my dad seemed to have shrunk somehow, his once broad shoulders now slightly hunched. They entered the cafe, and for a moment we all just stared at each other. Then my mom rushed forward and hugged me tightly. I stiffened at first, not used to such displays of affection from her, but eventually I hugged her back. My dad stood awkwardly to the side, looking uncomfortable. We sat down, and I let them speak first. My mom did most of the talking. She started by apologizing for the past, saying they realized how unfair they had been. She talked about how proud they were of my accomplishments and how much they regretted not supporting me more. Then came the kicker. They admitted that part of the reason they wanted to reconnect was because of Bobby's situation. Apparently his failed business venture wasn't just a simple bankruptcy. He had gotten involved with some shady characters and ended up with gambling debts. My parents had to sell their vacation home and take out a second mortgage to bail him out. As they spoke, memories flooded back. I remembered the summer before I left for college, when I had asked to use the vacation home for a week with my friends. They had said no, claiming they were planning to use it themselves later. I found out they had let Bobby and his friends stay there for a month. I listened to all of this, silently letting them talk. When they finished, I took a deep breath and told them exactly how I felt. I laid out every instance of Favoritism. Every time they had dismissed my achievements in favor of Bobby's latest whim, I told them about the nights I cried myself to sleep in college, wondering why I wasn't good enough for them to support me. I told them about the time I had to sell my laptop, a high school graduation gift from my grandmother, to pay for textbooks, about how I had to work night shifts at a diner during college, coming home smelling of grease and feeling exhausted while they were funding Bobby's partying lifestyle. My dad tried to interrupt to defend their actions, but I shut him down. I reminded him of all the football games he attended for Bobby and how he had missed my debate team winning the state championship because he was at one of Bobby's games. I told them that while I appreciated their apology, it didn't erase years of hurt and neglect. I made it clear that if they wanted a relationship with me, it would be on my terms, and it would take time and effort on their part. One also addressed the elephant in the room, Bobby. I told them that while I sympathized with his situation, I wasn't interested in being his safety net or in competing for their attention again. My life, my wife, and my daughter were my priorities now. As I spoke, I could see the pain and regret on their faces. My mom was crying silently, and my dad looked like he had aged 10 years in the span of our conversation. Part of me felt guilty for causing them pain, but another part felt relieved to finally be saying these things out loud. The conversation ended with mixed emotions. We agreed to take things slow. I said I'd be open to occasional phone calls, but I made no promises about in-person visits or introducing them to Lily. I told them I needed time to process everything and that they needed to respect my boundaries. As I left the cafe, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. It wasn't the heartwarming reconciliation some might have hoped for, but it felt honest and necessary. I walked to my car and sat there for a long time, replaying the conversation in my mind. When I got home, Donna was waiting for me. She took one look at my face and enveloped me in a hug. We sat on the couch, and I told her everything. She listened without judgment, offering comfort and support. That night, as we lay in bed, Donna asked me how I felt. I told her I wasn't sure. Part of me felt lighter, like I had finally released a burden I had been carrying for years, but another part felt raw and exposed, like an old wound had been reopened. I'm still processing everything, but I feel like I've taken a step towards healing, even if the road ahead is still uncertain. I know it won't be easy, and there's a lot more to work through, but for the first time in years, I feel like there's a possibility of having some kind of relationship with my parents again. I'll keep you updated on how things progress. Again, thank you all for your support and advice. It's given me the strength to face this situation head-on. Update 2. It's been about a month since my meeting with my parents, and I wanted to give you all another update. Things have been complicated. True to my word, I've been allowing limited contact with my parents. We've had a few phone calls, mostly short and somewhat awkward. My mom has been trying hard, maybe too hard. She calls more often than I'm comfortable with and always wants to know about Lily. I've had to set some boundaries there, reminding her that she needs to earn the right to be a grandmother. Last week, she called and spent 20 minutes telling me about a toy she had bought for Lily. I had to interrupt her and remind her that she hasn't even met Lily yet, and it's not appropriate to be buying her gifts at this stage. She seemed hurt, but I stood my ground. My dad, on the other hand, has been distant. He's only spoken to me once, and it was a stilted conversation. I get the feeling he's struggling with his pride, finding it hard to admit he was wrong all these years. During our one conversation, he mostly asked about my work, as if he was trying to understand the life I've built without them. The real drama, however, came from an unexpected source, my brother Bobby. About 2 weeks after my meeting with my parents, I received a long, rambling email from him. It was part apology, part plea for help. He wrote about how he had messed up his life, how he regretted taking advantage of our parents, and how he wished he had been a better brother to me. As I read the email, memories came flooding back. I remembered the time in high school when Bobby had borrowed my car without asking and gotten into an accident. Our parents had been angry, but they paid for the repairs without making Bobby face any consequences. Meanwhile, I had to take the bus to school for a month. At first, I was touched by Bobby's email. It seemed like a genuine attempt at reconciliation, but as I read on, the true purpose of the email became clear. Bobby was asking me for money. He had a business idea that he was sure would solve all his problems, and he wanted me to invest. I was furious. After all these years, after everything that had happened, he still saw me as nothing more than a potential source of cash. The business idea was vague and poorly thought out, something about a food truck that would sell gourmet hot dogs. It was clear he hadn't learned anything from his previous failure. I didn't respond to the email. Instead, I called my parents. The conversation was tense. I asked them if they knew about Bobby's email, and they admitted they did. In fact, they had. encouraged him to reach out to me. They thought that if Bobby and I reconciled, it would help bring the family back together. I lost my cool. At that point, I told them that their attempts at manipulation were exactly why I had ed myself in the first place. I reminded them of all the times they had enabled Bobby's bad behavior, from covering for him when he cheated on tests in high school to bailing him out of jail after a DUI in his 20s. I made it clear that I wasn't interested in funding another of Bobby's schemes, and I was hurt that they would even consider asking me after everything that had happened. I told them that if this was their idea of making amends, they had a lot to learn about respect and boundaries. The call ended badly. My mom was crying again. My dad was defensive, and I was shaking with anger. I felt like all the progress we had made had been undone in an instant. After I calmed down, I talked things over with Donna. She's been my rock through all of this, offering support and a clear perspective when I need it most. We decided that for now it's best to take a step back from my family again. The trust that was so tentatively rebuilt has been shattered, and I need time to process everything. I'm feeling discouraged and hurt, but also strangely relieved. This incident has confirmed that my instincts were right. My family still doesn't truly understand the pain they've caused or respect the boundaries I've set. It's a hard realization, but an important one. For now, I'm focusing on my own family, Donna and Lily. They're my priority, and I won't let the drama with my parents and Bobby affect the happiness we've built together. Last night, as I was tucking Lily into bed, she asked me to read her fair story, The Giving Tree. As I read, I realized how different my relationship with her is from the one I had with my parents. I want to know she's loved unconditionally, not for what she can give or do. This morning, I sent a brief email to my parents. I told them I needed some space and that I would contact them when I felt ready. I also made it clear that any future relationship would depend on their ability to respect my boundaries and treat me as an equal, not just as a potential solution to their problems. With Bobby, I haven't heard back from them yet, and honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Part of me is relieved for the quiet, while another part wonders if they've given up on reconnecting already. For now, I'm taking things day by day. I have a busy week ahead at the hospital, and Donna and I are planning Lily's third birthday party. Life goes on, and I'm determined to focus on the positive aspects of my life rather than dwelling on the past. I'll update again if anything significant changes, but for now I think it's time to close this chapter and move forward with my life. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this process. It's meant more than you know. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I felt it was time to share what's been happening. A lot has changed, both in my family situation and in my perspective on things. First, the situation with my parents and Bobby. After the blow-up over Bobby's email, I maintained my distance. I ignored calls and messages, focusing instead on my work and my immediate family. It was hard, especially around the holidays, but I felt it was necessary for my mental health. About 3 months ago, I received a letter from my dad. It wasn't an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter. The sight of his familiar handwriting brought back a flood of memories. Birthday cards, notes in my lunchbox when I was young before Bobby came along, and things changed in the letter. He did something I never thought I'd see. He offered a genuine and heartfelt apology. He acknowledged the favoritism they had shown Bobby, the hurt they had caused me, and the mistakes they had made in trying to reconcile. He didn't make excuses or ask for anything. He simply expressed remorse and a desire to make amends, but only if and when I was ready. He wrote about how he had been doing a lot of thinking and had realized how his own insecurities had influenced his behavior. He admitted that he had lived vicariously through Bobby's athletic achievements because he felt like a failure in his own career. He said he had always been proud of my academic success, but hadn't known how to show it. I was skeptical at first, but something about the letter felt different. Maybe it was the effort of actually writing it by hand, or maybe enough time had passed for real reflection. Either way, it opened the door to cautious communication. We've been talking more regularly now, usually just my dad and me. Our conversations are still sometimes awkward, but they feel more honest. He's been asking about my work and my family, really listening when I talk about my life. He's also been sharing more about his own struggles, including his difficulty in admitting his mistakes and his fear of losing his children. Last week, he asked if he could send Lily a birthday gift instead of just saying yes. I suggested we video call so he could watch her open it. The joy on his face when Lily excitedly unwrapped the toy doctor kit he sent was something I hadn't seen in years. As for my mom and Bobby, things are still complicated. My mom has respected my bound more, which I appreciate. She's been sending occasional emails, sharing family recipes, and Old photos, it's a small gesture, but it feels like she's trying to connect in a way that isn't overwhelming. Bobby, I've learned, has finally sought help for his gambling addiction and is working a steady job for the first time in years. He hasn't reached out to me directly, which is probably for the best right now. Dad mentioned that Bobby is attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings and is trying to pay back some of the money he owes our parents. The biggest change, however, has been in my own perspective. Through all of this, I've realized that while I can't change the past or control my family's actions, I can control how I respond to them. I've been working on letting go of some of the anger and resentment I've carried for so long. It's not easy, and there are still days when the old hurts resurface, but I'm trying. I've also gained a new appreciation for my own family. Donna has been incredibly supportive through all of this, offering advice when I need it, and just listening when I need to. Watching Lily grow and helping shape her understanding of family has made me reflect on what I want that to mean for her. Last weekend, we had a picnic in the park. As I watched Donna push Lily on the swing, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. I realized that regardless of what happens with my parents and Bobby, I have a family of my own now, one built on love, trust, and mutual respect. For now, we're taking things day by day. I'm not rushing into anything, but I'm also not closing any doors. My priority remains my wife and daughter, but I'm cautiously optimistic about the possibility of healing some of the rifts with my parents. This journey has been difficult, but it's also been enlightening. I've learned a lot about forgiveness, boundaries, and the complexities of family relationships. Whatever happens next, I feel better equipped to handle it. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this process. It's meant more than you know.